Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. Today we're going to be going over carrier bearing and carrier bearing and U-joint replacement on a 2019 Polaris RS1. This also, similar process for other machines out there. So we'll go over to the machine and we'll start by what was needed to prep to remove the drive shaft. So the first thing I did was I went underneath the machine, removed the entire skid plate. I then came up here, removed the 8 push pins that hold the cup holder in, pulled that out. Then underneath here, there's two 15 millimeter bolts. There's a metal guard that goes over the drive shaft and carrier bearing. I removed those 2. I then went back underneath. At the end of that metal bracket, there is a 10 millimeter bolt that has to come out for that whole metal piece to come out. And then I kind of just pulled it right out this way. Kind of got stuck a little bit because it's a snug fit, but once I really yanked it, it came out. Then up here, we'll go underneath. I'll show you where that bolt is. Then underneath here, there's this hole here. It's, I've got the 5 holes here. It's the front right one. If you're under it, the front right one. I notched it out to make it a little bit bigger, and then I punched the roll pin out the top of that hole. And then that's how the front of the drive shaft comes loose. Here's where, oh no, sorry, back here is where that 10 millimeter bolt is. Right here, like right at the corner of that gas tank. I'll show you what I'll be doing to make removing it a little easier. So pop that 10 out from there, and then that's what I did to get that bracket out. Then you go to the back of the machine and go to the back here where the drive shaft meets. There's 4 6 millimeter Allen bolts that hold this on. So you can get in there with a short Allen and a small ratchet and pop these 4 off through the bottom with the skid plate off. Then you take the whole drive shaft, yank it forward, and then it'll pull right out through here with a little, you have to give a little motivation on it. I removed the clutch cover because then you can rotate this a little bit out of the way. And then, kind of opens it up. You finagle this a little bit and you open up a little bit more room. Without the cover here, you gain, like an inch, maybe half inch, a little less, somewhere around there. And then you can rotate the clutch to give yourself more room. I also jacked the machine up just a little bit so I can get under there with my creeper. So now we'll go back to the workbench and kind of explain what I did, with the drive. Since the drive shaft's out, you can see that a little bit better. So up front here, this is the front of the drive shaft. So I had it, so the hole was up and down with the roll pin. This is the roll pin. I will not be putting this back in. I call these bitch pins, not roll pins, because they're a bitch to get out. I let this thing soak in a PB blaster for at least a week, and it took a lot to get out. I used a 1/4 inch punch to knock it out. So is what I'm going to be doing. I'm always looking for ways to make trail repairs easier. I don't want to have to sit there in the woods fighting this, or on my trailer fighting this to get this out. So is what I did. What I'll be doing is putting a nut and a bolt in. So once I took the drive shaft out and I got this front yoke out, I went to my local hardware store and grabbed a grade 8 bolt with a nylock nut, and it fits right in there pretty snug. And so when I install it, that'll be on there, and the nut clears the thread so the nylock locks on, and I won't have to worry about it coming off. So that's what I'll be installing it with. I will not be putting that back in. So this is where the carrier bearing, this is the carrier bearing. This is where the 2 15s are. I'll actually show you. This is what it'll kind of look like on the machine when you see it in there. So as you can see, it covers a good portion. So if this U-joint ever breaks, it protects your gas tank a little bit. And then this is where that 10mm bolt is. Now this is what I did to it. I notched it. So all I have to do is break it free, and then I can just kind of slide it out and up. I'm probably gonna probably cut it back this way a little bit, just so it, you know, just this loop is left. Just so that I don't really have to worry about, you know, that's pretty far to have to slide it back. So I'll be cutting it here, off right there. So it just gets bolted down. So this way when I break it, all I gotta do is break the nut free, slide it out a little bit and pop up over, and it should be good. So that's what I'm gonna be doing with that next. So then get this out of the way, that pin out, then you come to the back here. This is what mounts to the rear. And this is where the 4 bolts are. So once you remove those bolts, see that little lip there, you pop it forward, and then the drive shaft will come free. And then, you know, you just pull it out towards you a little bit and pull it out. And then you separate the drive shaft as here. And then to do the front one, because when you pull the whole thing forward, this will slide forward on the spline shaft that comes out of the front diff. Pull it forward a little bit, and then you just pull it right down out through the bottom. There's plenty of room for it to come out. So the next thing I did was I already replaced the carrier bearing. I used the all balls carrier bearing. There's the part number. I used that one. So to get this off, the one thing you'll need a pair of snap ring pliers and a hammer. I always, you know, for me, bigger is better. So once you take that snap ring out, that is right in there. You see, right? Pop that snap ring out, then clamp it in your vise, and then you just give it a few, you know, little love taps around the edge there so it comes off even. I always clean the shaft off. I grease everything. Then when putting the new carrier bearing on, slide it down the drive shaft, get a bar that'll slide over everything so it hits it down evenly. And then you hit the end of the pipe, and that'll slide it down evenly without damaging anything. And then reinstall your snap ring, and that's how you install the carrier bearing on the shaft. I recommend anytime the drive shaft comes out, just replace everything, because it's not something you don't want to pull it out, replace the carrier bearing, and then have to pull it out to replace the U-joint that's right behind the carrier bearing. So I always recommend replacing everything. So to do the U-joints, it's really not that hard of a job. So what I did, I used a socket, set it down, laid the yokes on it, and then I have junk sockets that I use, and you just hit it down so it slides down and recesses inside that hole a little bit, and then you flip it over. I'll show you on an old one. There's these little C-clips that hold the caps in, and they're like that. So then I got in there with a little pick or a really small flathead screwdriver that come with like eyeglass kits, and then you just pop those out, and then flip it over, do the other side. I took all 4 clips out first, and then I came in with a punch, and inside the yoke, slid it in there, and just hit down until the cups come off. So then it'll look like this. So when you get one side out, there'll be no cups. The cups just slide right off. And then it's kind of, you know, like a game to get it out. You slide it up, rotate it out, slide down. And then you do the same thing at all 4 points. So once you get all those clips out and these caps popped off, you just slide up, pull it out, lift down, and it pops right out. So do one at a time that way, and then they installed. Here's a little fun fact. Say you're out on the trail, you break a U-joint, you don't have a spare one, and you want to go to your local hardware store or a parts store. You could actually go right to Advanced Auto and grab part number 338 It is the same exact U-joint. I actually ended up having to do that with one of them because when it's actually this one right here, when installing it, the little needle bearings, one of them fell and was laying sideways. And when I went to go hit it with the hammer, it blew the top half of this cap off. So I ended up having to get one. And when I did a little research online, I saw somebody, put up there that, they worked perfect for their 900S. It fit. They take the same U-joints as the RS1. So I said, why not? Let's give it a try. So I ran to Advanced Auto and grabbed one. And I figured, why not? I have a lifetime warranty on it now. So if it ever breaks, I just take an old one to them, exchange it, and I now have a lifetime warranty on U-joints for my RS1. So I figured, hey, why not? So you do that, at 3 points. There's three U-joints: front, that's the middle, and the rear. So like I said, rest it on the socket. I used a junk socket. I went a little bit smaller than the hole because I didn't want to gouge the hole up. Pop it down enough to pop that little C-clip, retaining clip, whatever you want to call them. Pop that out, and then flip it. Do it again until you pop all of them out, all 4 of them, and then just take a punch and rest it on it and hit it down till it comes out. So it'll pop out a little, it'll protrude a little bit, and that's what I did. I took either a pair of vice grips or channel locks, gripped it sideways like this. And when it popped out, gripped it like that, a few spins like this, and it popped right out. I don't know, it's hard to see, but these are the ones I removed, and they're pretty shot. They're pretty dry. These are non-greasable U-joints. And the one that comes from, the one that I purchased from Advanced Auto, it's a Moog U-joint. It is the one in the front, and it comes greasable. So it's got the Zerk fitting. It is a greasable U-joint. So install it. You have to grease it. They're ungreased. They've got a little bit in it on the rollers just to help prevent rust while they sit on the shelf. But they are greasable. So I swapped them all out for greasable U-joints. The other thing, when installing the 2 halves together, I don't know if you could see, but there's a green line right there. These 2 splines right here in the front half are actually one spline. I don't know if you can see that right there. There's a piece there that keeps it together as one spline. So you can't really put this on the wrong way. So there's also a green line there. So when installing it when it's going back in the car, line those 2 halves up, and it only goes on that way. Another thing to do before you put it all back together in the vehicle, I throw a little grease on it all the time, but I'll be pumping more. Test that grease zerk. Make sure grease goes through it before putting it back together, because you can think you're greasing it and you're not. So when I pulled this off, these splines were really dry of grease. So only thing I have left to do now is reinstall it. So that's really all that's left. It's not a hard job. Like I said, the hardest part is removing this roll pin. It is a bitch. That's why I call it a bitch pin. So that should make a good solution. Shouldn't throw it off balance anything. And it'll make a fast trail repair, and it's not going to back itself off. I'll throw a little bit of red Loctite on it just to be safe. Because of that nylock, it won't back off. And if you do decide to go that route, make sure you use a grade 8 bolt. You don't want to use grade 5, anything like that. That'll break. It's not going to rust. It's stainless steel. So 3 U-joints. Pop the caps down. Take the C-clips off. They'll pop off the caps with a small screwdriver like that. And just pop off all 4 of them. And then, punch while it's in there. Take a punch and pop right off when you hit them out. They'll come out. they'll take a beating. They're in there because they're basically a press fit. If you don't want to do, yes, the hammer is a little rough. You go over to a vise. This is just a small woodworking one that I have. But you open it up and you do the same thing. You put a socket, so where that cap fits inside the socket on one side, and then you put a small socket that fits on the cap, and you just kind of press it into the cap. And then that's what you'll do to get the circlips off, and then use a punch to knock them completely out. But one thing I recommend before putting them all back together, just take a little bit of sandpaper, run it on the inside. Just kind of scuff the edges up, clean them up. Sometimes they'll get a little nick. If your punch slips, it'll put a little nick. You don't want any burrs when putting these caps back in. It'll crack them. You can break them. It'll cock them. Just clean up the insides, and makes for, it'll make life a little easier with, removing and installing them. So the install of this will be the opposite of what I did. I will start with the front. This will go underneath, slide up in, slide the front shaft, slide this yoke all the way on the shaft. Rest this up where the carry bearing bolts to. I'm not going to put any bolts in until I have the front and rear on. Then I'll slide the rear up into its position. I will bolt the rear on because that doesn't, once you get these lined up, you can bolt the rear in. And then this, because this shaft doesn't sit all the way inside that yoke. There will be a little bit of a, gap. It's a pretty long shaft, so it kind of helps make up. And then line that hole up. I'm going to put my nut and bolt through it, bolt it down. Not going to go crazy tight. I'm just going to make it snug, just as long as the nylon clears all the threads. So once that's installed, then put your skid plate back on, cup holder on, clean the clutch cover out before you put it back on, and blow your clutches out. That's no better time to clean your clutches than then. You've got everything out, already apart. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything I could have done different or any other recommendations for shortcuts, just drop it in the comments section. Let me know. And